Hello again. In this podcast, I talk to David Plummer. David is a wildlife photographer who's based in southern England, and he's been a wildlife photographer for some time. He's also got into videography and consulting, and in this podcast, he talks about that. He's also been suffering with Parkinson's disease for the last few years, and this has made a big impact on his photography, as he explains in the recording that's coming up. Now, I do apologise for the sound quality. It's not as good as I would have liked. We had to sort of look for a venue B to record David, but I hope you get enough from it to feel inspired. So here's the podcast. Okay, so I'm here with David Plummer, and David has been, I should say, a wildlife photographer, but also is a lot more than that, and has quite an amazing story. And I don't really want to preempt it because David can tell his story obviously far better than I can. And we've just been having a chat here about how we're going to go about this talk. And I think what we'll do is, as we discussed, just talk about maybe how you got started, David, and the kind of way, and we'll let the journey kind of unfold from that point. So I'll hand over to you.
Quite long and convoluted.
That's okay.
So yeah, thanks for having me on. Thanks for inviting me. It's a pleasure.
Pleasure.
So how I got started, I've been into wildlife since the earliest age, really. It's my first memories. I remember playing with woodlice on my mum's coffee table, and she probably found it pretty disgusting. But I went through the whole childhood. Didn't go to school very much, and might be familiar with some people. And I started wildlife photography probably at about the age 8 or something like that.
Wow.
As soon as I got my first SLR camera. But then in those days, buying a long lens was really prohibitive. And, I was reduced to photographing blue tits in the garden with just a canvas sheet. But it hooked me, and I've continued ever since. And it's just a thing that's totally grown.
That's great. And then how did your career begin? Well, when you got a bit older, how did that begin to unfold? So presumably you did start getting some telephoto lenses and got to be more creative with your photography.
Yeah, I actually was a police officer for 8 years, 9 years, and 2 years of those I was sent to the Caribbean, which was quite pleasant. And then when I came back, I thought I'd leave because I needed more adventure in my life. And photography was still going. So I started investing in really quite rubbish lenses at the time. I remember going to secondhand sales of kit and just picking up any lens. But that's when I really decided I'm going to follow this professionally. I remember being in British woodlands, sort of with my knees soaking wet because I was photographing flowers at springtime, and I just thought, I want to do this forever. This is what I want to do, and I just became obsessed. I've never done a single lesson in photography or filming or anything like that. I'm totally self-taught. But it becomes an overriding passion, and I think that's the most important aspect. You've got to have that passion. And it's also good to start learning on a budget. If you've got, we're all probably gadget freaks and lens freaks and think life would be perfect if we have that £7,000 lens. But the reality is, if you only have a lens that's a couple of £100, you learn the limitations of your kit. Not only the limitations of your kit, but how you're going to work around it to still get good images. And so you is not hacking, but you develop your field craft because you've got to get closer to your subject. And this was in the days of transparency film. So I think I calculated every image I took cost 30 pence in film stock, because I used to use Fuji Velvia, rated at ISO 50 then.
Yeah.
So by the time you've bought that, which isn't cheap, and by the time you've had it processed, that's about 30 pence an image. So I've got notebooks from those years which have got every single exposure reading that I took on every image, because I couldn't afford to make mistakes. And I think you become a master of exposure on especially transparency, because it's unforgiving. It gives you no opportunity to get it wrong. You can't correct it subsequently, or you can do very little in editorial. And now we live in the age of digital photography, and I think that sometimes people just sort of spray and pray and hope that the camera gets it right every now and then. And I think the most important aspect is to learn your craft. Learn how to photograph, learn reciprocity law. And once you learn that, then everything in photography is based on reciprocity law. And if you learn that, and it's normally the bit in the books that everyone avoids because it's got maths involved, they all go to composition page because it's got nice pictures. But they ignore just the basics. And I think if you learn that, and just, it doesn't take long, just a day devoted to that, and you learn the beautiful, beautiful mathematics of photography.
Well, it opens the door to your creativity, doesn't it? It releases the potential of whatever camera you're using. Because if you don't understand that, you're forever, limited to very narrow. There's very little you can do ultimately. Whereas to really open the door, you've just got to understand it. And I remember I had notebooks, and I used slide film as well. And I got very sparing with which photographs I took.
Exactly, because one, your frame rate was really slow anyway, and two, it was just so horrendously expensive. And you didn't know what you got until 5 days later.
Oh, exactly, and that was why I had the notebook, and I talked to people about days of film and kind of how the older people among us learned to take photographs, and put it that way. The more mature.
Middle age gets older and older as I get older and older.
Exactly. Yeah, I don't know what's going on there. I find the same thing. It's all a bit of a letdown. So you began teaching and doing courses, and you were doing that for a while, and I think you're still doing some of it, aren't you? How did that develop?
Quite simply, I was asked to, and it's I've always worked with conservation groups. So I've worked with Sussex Wildlife Trust since 1999, I think, or year 2000. They're my local wildlife trust, and they gave me a lot of support and actually asked me to teach photography courses, sort of beginning wildlife photography courses. And nothing teaches you a subject like teaching it. Because you get asked a lot of questions and you have to know the answers. Although it's always good to be prepared to say, I don't know the answer, rather than put people off.
Absolutely.
And it really taught me a lot running courses. And let's face it, wildlife photography, which I've pretty much specialised in all my career, is hard to make a living. And it becomes a lifestyle in effect. And I've developed a lot of skills around photography that have led to other forms of employment, guiding, teaching, consultancy work for film companies, and it becomes a lifestyle. And in reality, I could possibly not take another image for the rest of my life and be relatively happy.
Yeah.
But if I couldn't see wildlife every day, that would be the end for me. It's the wildlife that is of greatest priority to me.
Yeah, I think it's so powerful. I think for most of us, even if we're not conscious of it, to just be able to connect with nature in some way, whether that's just going out in the garden and looking at the birds, or being able to go somewhere where you can see animals in their own environment. There's just something I think that really takes us out of the day-to-day nonsense that it's so easy to get drawn into.
Yeah, I think COVID, the pandemic, brought nature home to a lot of people.
Yeah.
I mean, I felt a little bit guilty. I live right in the countryside. My rear fence boundary is the South Downs National Park. So for me, first lockdown was great. I must admit, because it was like I was in a science fiction film where everyone had disappeared.
Yeah.
And all there were animals. I noticed that wildlife drifted closer to roads during first lockdown.
Yeah.
Because there was a hell of a lot less traffic, and then as soon as traffic started again, they all sort of spread out from the road. But I think the pandemic definitely brought nature to people, and they started appreciating things. I've not seen so many references to birdsong and how people were now listening to birdsong.
Yeah.
Because there was no ambient noise, no traffic and no airlines and going over or anything like that. So, yeah, I think it really helped people.
Yeah, yeah. And you were talking about the consultancy and the projects, and we were speaking about the projects just before we started recording. Do you want to talk a bit more about that side of things? Because that sounds very interesting, the work you're getting involved with in that area now.
Yeah, so I think if I had my main strength in wildlife photography is fieldcraft, and I really developed that. And I think that was because I couldn't afford long lenses early on, and I have this obsession with wildlife and animal behaviour. So I sort of developed methods of getting close to wildlife and setting up shots that would otherwise be quite difficult to get. And so I was asked to consult for various wildlife documentary companies. And now that's forming quite a major part of income. I think the production companies have had difficulty accepting the role because they used to, say, a volunteer at a nature reserve, showing them where whatever species they're going is. But I took it a step beyond and was setting hides up and putting crew in just the right place at just the right time for the backlight. And so I was encouraged by some of these crews, because I became very friendly with them, to start filming myself. And I started filming, but definitely the consultancy is very enjoyable. I really like it, and I think the role's being more accepted. I mean, the latest thing is there's a landmark David Attenborough series just about to be released, and next week we've got the screening in London, and it's just, I mean, it's one of the highlights of my career, I think, just to be involved in, a huge David Attenborough series. It's like everyone's dream.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's funny how those one thing leads to another, and then suddenly you're in this place where you're getting involved in those kind of projects.
And the busier you are, the busier you get.
Yeah.
Because you're out there.
Yeah. I want to talk about something else, and that is obviously I say obviously, but you developed Parkinson's disease a little while ago. And do you want to talk about that? And you've got your book as well, the 7 Years of Camera Shake. So if you'd like to just talk about that, and I guess, how you realised what was going on and the impact that's had in doing your work and your approach to your work.
Yeah, so it was 2009 and I was editing on the computer, as we all do now, and I just noticed a tremor in my left arm.
Yeah.
And to cut a long story short, 9 months later, I was diagnosed with Parkinson's disease at age 39, I think. And so that was 14 years ago. And it's quite an axe blow. You know, the axe falls and you think my career as a photographer is over. And, you know, your initial thoughts with something like that is, you know, why did it happen to me? Why have I had this? And I realised they're stupid questions to ask yourself. It's a fait accompli. It's already happened. There's nothing you can do about it.
Yeah.
So you've got no control over anything that happens to you. The only thing you've got total control over is how you react to it.
Yeah.
And so I just decided, well, sod it, I'm just going to get on with things. I've not got long. I didn't know how long. I remember neurologists said when I was diagnosed, you've got between 2 to 3 years of function left, which was quite frightening at the time. So from then I was in a race to get things done. And in a perverse sense, Parkinson's disease has been the best thing that ever happened to me.
Right.
Because I have no excuses now. If I don't do it now, I might not be able to do it next week or next month or next year.
Yeah.
So I just get on with it. And consequently, it's led to a greater production in work and therefore a greater sort of creativity and also lots more opportunity as well, because I've become involved in sort of disability, opportunities and trying to champion people who are sort of disadvantaged in the area, both at home and abroad, actually.
Yeah. Do you want to say more about that side of your work?
Recently, I produced a book called 7 Years of Camera Shake, which did quite well. It certainly brought things to the limelight, as it were, both photographically and awareness of Parkinson's in this country. But I recently went to work in Sri Lanka, and it was the first place I've been long haul since COVID, and I'm worse now. And so my symptoms are much more obvious, and I was subject to quite a degree of stigmatization from, I guess, no offense to people of that nation, but there's cultural beliefs around disability and things like Parkinson's disease. And it was quite unpleasant. I mean, I think disabled people are always stigmatized wherever they are. But I think in sort of where we live now, people draw a line and they know there's something wrong with this person. But it made me realize, experiencing it overseas, that in some countries, people have a really hard time with this. And so I've adjusted my focus from sort of trying to raise awareness from this country, in this country or in Europe, to more remote places. So next week, I'm going out to co-direct and present a documentary on stigmatization and persecution of disabled people, but especially people with Parkinson's disease in Africa. I'm not going to say where I'm going.
Okay.
But you know, that's what I'm doing next week. That's an 8-day shoot. And we want to produce something cinematic and really moving, not just an infomercial, but something that's going to make heads of nation actually live up to the agreements they've ratified with human rights organisations. And if you look at some of the records or some of the stories coming out of countries in Africa. It's horrific what is happening to people. Not just simply lack of medication, but persecution to the most extreme level.
When will that be available? Do you have a target release date for the documentary yet?
Well, we do, but there's lots of rules around that, about our subsequent control of the documentary, which are ongoing. But I want it to sort of reach mainstream news. That they're our ambitions for it, because we really want to sort of move people in this. So the more it's controlled by people, the less output I think there is. So it's probably going to be available in July, I would imagine.
Okay. Well, that's good. That's something I'm certainly interested in seeing, because I've been to quite a few countries in Africa and I've seen some of what you're talking about. So I'm interested in seeing that.
I don't want to tar the whole of Africa with the same brush at all.
Absolutely not.
That's definitely not the case. But there are some quite horrific stories coming out of some areas. And it's not just restricted to Africa. It's just that's where I've worked every year for about the last 11 or 12 years. But probably longer than that.
And speaking, but I absolutely love Africa, and I just find the people are amazing. Most of the people I meet are just absolutely amazing. I love going back. But there are also instances that are not good, and they don't reflect well on anybody.
It's very different. Sometimes when we view it from the lens, through the sort of filter of ability, people are lovely, friendly, helpful. As soon as you have some sort of visible thing that they don't possibly understand, you experience things through the filter of disability, and the stigmatization itself is really confidence knocking. And I was subject to persecution as well, and it's very, very different. Very different.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Yeah. Okay. Is there anything more you want to say on that while we're just talking about that subject?
No. Well, my view is it's I have what I have, and it's not stopping me doing anything. It is stopping me doing things at times, but I'm belligerently carrying on. And I think that is a key skill to learn in photography, especially wildlife photography. It's a hard game, and unless you're doggedly persistent in your pursuit of it, success is very difficult, I think.
That kind of brings me back to one of the things I like to end on, which is just any advice you have for people starting in wildlife photography. And you've obviously covered an important aspect there. Is there anything else that you'd like to add to that?
Yeah, I would say don't follow all the other photographers. I mean, you can go. I am going to the Masai Mara in a few weeks. You can go to the Masai Mara, but it's been photographed to death. Svalbard has been photographed to death now. My view is find an area that other people aren't doing or aren't covering. I remember I travelled a huge amount in areas of Brazil, and the Pantanal region, when I started there were hardly any photographers there. And that gives you a niche straight away. Oh, sorry, that's my med timer. That gives you a niche straight away, and also develop a passion for a subject as well. Because if you develop that passion for a subject, be it owls or wading birds or mammals, then you become obsessive with it. And if you become obsessive, then you become, I'm not going to say expert, but you become very knowledgeable in it. And the more you know your subject, the easier it is to photograph.
Yeah. And what do you think about smartphones? Because I was looking at an ad or a video you have on your website using a smartphone, and that I think changes to some extent is a game changer. Because I use big DSLR when I go away, but I also have my smartphone. And I use that for panos and videos and things like that.
Yeah.
What's your view on them?
Well, I mean, we don't buy smartphones for the phone aspect anymore, do we? The main thing that sells them is cameras, and they are. I think there's a statistic that 95% of all photographs have been taken in the last 5 years, because everyone's taking images.
Yeah.
I think it's an incredible tool to have. I mean, people are producing television shows on a smartphone.
Yeah.
I think the latest, recent iPhones filming ProRes RAW. So, I mean, that's a phenomenal achievement.
Yeah.
And I did an ad for a company, I won't tell you who it was, but in Germany, and it was very successful. And, I got an exhibition out of it in Hamburg, and that was just from a smartphone. And, if you've got some wildlife phenomenon going on in front of you, and especially on the small scale, you can get that phone right in there. And as I was saying, that bit of film, the best camera you have is the one you got in your hand.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot being recorded that's really special now. And on a filming front, I mean, you can get some nice wide establishing shots just on a smartphone and a gimbal, or mount it on a tripod, and it's quite incredible what you can do.
Yeah, and it's certainly that. The whole game has changed since we were both starting with film cameras. It's quite a different situation these days. Yeah.
There's one thing I'd like the manufacturer to change, though, is to rotate the sensor through 90 degrees. When people film vertically, we still get a 16:9 aspect ratio.
Yeah.
Because when some of this footage gets shown on news channels, they fill the 16:9 space by blurred versions of the narrow aspect ratio they've taken, which is 9:16.
Yeah, and it used to be unusual to take a portrait format shot, and these days it's the norm. Normally it was just landscape.
Exactly that.
Yeah, I much prefer the landscape. Yeah. Is there anything else you'd like to add before we wind things up?
It's wildlife photography is a hard game. It's never been cheaper or easier to get equipment to photograph wildlife really well. And just go for it. Be persistent. Keep going. I think one of the most important things to learn as a photographer or any creative is how you deal with rejection. Because you're going to be rejected a lot.
Yeah.
And instead of being beaten down by rejection after rejection, you need to be inspirationally dissatisfied. And every editor that turned me down for a magazine article, 30 years ago, I used to just say, "Oh, well, sod you, I'm going to produce something you've never seen before, the best work ever."
Yeah.
And I think that inspirational dissatisfaction is definitely something to pursue.
Yeah, treat it like a challenge.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. That's brilliant. Well, look, David, I really appreciate you spending time with me, and I found it's been really interesting, and I do a sign off after this anyway, but for anyone who's interested in seeing more of David's work, in the podcast description, there'll be a link to David's Instagram and his website. And you can find out more that way. So thanks again, David. I've really enjoyed our time.
You're very welcome. I've enjoyed it. Thank you. And good luck everyone out there as well.
Now, I hope you enjoyed that. If you'd like to look at David's website, you can find him at davidplummer.co.uk. Plummer is Plummer. And you can find him on Instagram as David Plummer Images. So those links are in the description. And I'll speak to you again in the next podcast. Bye for now. Oh, and one thing just before you go, please take a look at the 2026 wildlife calendar. That's available now. It's on the website. There's a link below the description of this podcast episode. So please take a look, and I'll speak to you next time. Bye now.